Our next topic of the show is about F.E.A.R. and the F.E.A.R. franchise, guys. The first encounter assault recon franchise. A franchise in which was absolutely terrifying to myself. It was one of the scariest games at the time when I played it. Obviously, as time has gone on, there's been some other very terrifying games. But this, as a first-person shooter, was a terrifying experience, and it was very well done. Between the first one, the second one, and then the third one obviously was a little bit, shaky, but we'll kind of get to that. But here's the question, guys. Where is F.E.A.R 4? A game that I believe definitely deserves to exist in gaming, and a franchise that I think should have continued without a doubt. I'm just wondering to myself, and I've been wondering for a while, where is F.E.A.R 4 and whatever happened to this series? So let's talk about it. In an article written by Ethan Butterfield of Game Grin, there are few things that can capture the sense of tension in a horror game better than what F.E.A.R itself brings to the table. Yes, there's nothing quite like blowing away psychic enemy soldiers with shotguns and grenade launchers in close-range combat. That doesn't sound right. In all seriousness, though, F.E.A.R, abbreviated from First Encounter Assault Recon, is the spitting image of what the horror and action genre look like when put together well. One could also put Doom 3 in that category, but Doom is more of a franchise known for the action rather than the scares, whereas F.E.A.R, on the other hand, brings more of a spookiness to it, which is 100% true, guys. If you never played the F.E.A.R franchise, especially the first two, absolutely terrifying moments. So what is F.E.A.R? Well, it's funny that I should ask that, but because my first experience with F.E.A.R were interesting right from the get-go. Now, as I'm sure some of you can relate, sometimes there is a series that you end up playing in the reverse order, whether it be Metal Gear Solid or Resident Evil or what have you. And so he explains how he kind of went from the second F.E.A.R over to the first one. So he kind of played it a little bit backwards. And I think that this can be true for a lot of people out there. When you look at games like Metal Gear Solid or Resident Evil, sometimes you might play the games backwards somewhat or another just because of like when they came out in the order of events. The story to F.E.A.R is actually, for the most part anyway, fairly interesting and engaging. Throughout the first game, you take the reins of Point Man, a real man of the point, evidently, as you fight against an evil corporation known as Armachem, who on a scale of ridiculously evil is one step below Umbrella, but one above Cell from Crisis. During the length of the campaign, you uncover the dark secrets behind Armachem as you listen to office phone messages, kill dudes in armor, and fight off a terrifying ghost child named Alma that can warp reality into a horrifying nightmare state. But just your average Mondays. In terms of how the game did, the first F.E.A.R performed incredibly well and garnered several positive scores for its gameplay and atmospheric tone. The second game in the franchise, which also was met with the same praise, followed the same format, but this time the player took control of one Michael Beckett, a far less mute protagonist, but still the same amount as Grizzled. In-game, it's all pretty much the same stuff throughout. Dudes in armor, horror happens, and Alma becomes a mother. It's true, at the end of F.E.A.R 2 titled Project Origin, Alma does a thing to Beckett, and that thing results in a child of her very own. Frankly, the way it plays out is more disturbing than horrifying, but it still gets points all the same. Review-wise, F.E.A.R 2 also did quite successfully and was well received by fans of the franchise. So going back here, the first game, guys, was terrifying. I thought it was absolutely incredibly well done. Very interesting story. I thought it was a great, first game in a franchise like this. And I didn't really think twice, like, are they going to make another one or not? It was just something that I enjoyed it a lot, and I would definitely play another one if they made one. They come out with F.E.A.R 2. I'm like, this looks really good. I'm going to give it a try, and I did, and it was even better than the first one, in my opinion. I thought it was scarier than the first one. I thought that, I liked the character, the character arcs and things of that nature more, and all in all, I thought F.E.A.R 2 was absolutely incredible, so that's kind of like my personal take on it. I'm like, okay, now I'm expecting them to make more and more of these games. So, F.E.A.R 3... So being the last entry into the series, you might be surprised to learn that F.E.A.R 3 switched up the formula a bit and presented itself as a co-op shooter, which is kind of perplexing when you think about it. A first-person action horror game may be scary here and there, but a co-op first-person action horror game will certainly not be. Despite the above, however, F.E.A.R 3 was praised for its well-constructed co-op feature and decent overall characterization, but panned for its lack of horror and storytelling. A story, mind you, that ends up with Alma giving birth while picking which of the two players she liked more, and thus fundamentally turning the game bitter for players by alienating one of the participants, regardless of how well they actually did. So why hasn't there been a recent addition to the beloved F.E.A.R franchise? Now, here's what I'm going to talk about, guys, is F.E.A.R as with this third game. When I played it, it's another mistake that a horror game, series, franchise has made. Instead of doing what works and what is, what people want, it's another franchise that has turned into this idea where, hey, we don't want it to be necessarily as much horror anymore. We want it to be more of a shooter. And kind of trying to go in this route of like a Call of Duty game or something of that nature. When really, it's all about the horror, even though obviously it's a first-person shooter as well. First-person shooter horror game. And it was terrifying at that. I get the direction they were trying to go. They wanted to make this co-op shooter. They wanted to create F.E.A.R Online, which was going to be this online experience and all these different things. It was ambitious. But the problem is that when you move away from the franchise in a way, it can really backfire on you. We look at the Dead Space franchise. Dead Space 1 and 2, incredible games. And then you get to the third one, it was still good, but they tried to go in this direction of a shooter instead of sticking to the roots of the game, that being a horror game. And look what happened. We haven't had a Dead Space game since Dead Space 3. So what I'm saying is, guys, is that there's a trend here with these horror games. If you are a horror developer and you have something special here, don't go away from what has made the series so good. Stick with it, maybe evolve it a bit. And look, no one's saying that you can't make a F.E.A.R game and have it scary as far as the campaign is concerned, but then add online components that maybe aren't as scary. And add some co-op modes and things of that nature. There's nothing wrong with that, but when it comes to the story itself, stick to what has made the franchise so promising and so exciting and scary. Stick with those things and what's made it successful. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that a combination of mediocre sales and lack of scares are most likely what did the franchise in. I also wouldn't be shocked if F.E.A.R Online had a big part to play in it as well. This is really unfortunate because I feel like there's still a lot of potential left in the series that someone could work with, but that's just me. All in all, though, F.E.A.R is a title that, despite tripping up a bit in the third game, really just needs a fresh coat of paint to come alive once more. So, look, I like this article overall, guys, and I agree with a lot of what he's saying here, stating that F.E.A.R Online was it was ambitious, it was a good idea, but it was almost too soon. Like, you look at GTA Online, you look at Red Dead Online, you look at these other multiplayer components that games have been putting in or implementing nowadays. It's a great idea for the time. F.E.A.R Online was a great idea for the time. The problem is we just weren't there yet, technologically and all of those things. Also, F.E.A.R was somewhat of a niche game, and I think it was a great idea, but so many people were playing Call of Duty. They were playing Battlefield. They were playing other games, Halo. They were playing other shooters. So I think F.E.A.R needed to not really create F.E.A.R Online, just create like some multiplayer game modes, kind of get people engaged and coming back to the franchise, even doing like, if you had like a horde mode where you're going against waves upon waves of enemies, things of that nature I think would have done really well for the F.E.A.R franchise. Unfortunately, guys, we're never probably really going to know. There has been rumor that another F.E.A.R was going to come back, but I think really what it comes down to, guys, if you ever want to see another F.E.A.R game, we're really going to have to get the community alive again. And the community is going to have to be the ones stating that they want another F.E.A.R game. And I believe the last time I checked, the F.E.A.R servers were basically shut down as far as from the online components, which is really sad and unfortunate. I think what it really is going to take, though, guys, you look at a game like the Mafia series, which we have talked about on the YouTube channel. Mafia was in kind of a state of limbo, and has been for a while. But with lots of talks and things of that nature, the community is almost trying to breathe fresh life into the Mafia franchise and get Hangar 13 to make another game. The same could be said with F.E.A.R. We could get this game made. It just all comes down to, does the community want it, and then kind of building a movement around that game. But let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think happened to the F.E.A.R. franchise? Would you want to see a F.E.A.R. 4? And where do you think the game is at this point? Do you think it's in limbo? Do you think it's actually being developed right now? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. And for all news and videos, content based around F.E.A.R. 4, stay right here with Zero TV.